Here now is Lisa Bell and Candace Campos with Florida Foodie. Sponsored by Light Orlando, delivering hope together.
Hello and welcome back to Florida Foodie. I'm Candace Campos.
And I'm Lisa Bell. Today we are joined by a guest who has transformed Winter Garden and is now getting ready for a massive expansion with his brewery.
So joining us now is Andrew Sheeter. He's the founder of Crooked Can Brewing Company, a household name when it comes to beer here in Central Florida. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell us where you came from, because all of a sudden Winter Garden is a completely different community. And I say all of a sudden, it's been over the course of about 7 or 8 years now. But give us a little bit of background, where you came from and why you decided to open this up in Winter Garden.
Yeah, so originally I'm a finance guy, and so I have a background in finance, and that's what my business was doing. And I went on a ski trip with some friends. We were out in Breckenridge, and then we were in Boulder, Colorado, and we went to a brewery, and there were 3 of us, and we thought, this is really cool, we should try this. And so on the flight home from Denver, by the time we landed, we had a brewery concept, and we knew we wanted to be in Winter Garden. We knew we wanted to have our beer in cans. Those are the 2 things we figured out. So that's how I got started. So we just felt that Winter Garden was where it was at, definitely.
And so you were saying that the Winter Garden that you first moved into with Crooked Can was not the Winter Garden that it looks like now. So give us an idea of kind of a before and now.
Today.
Yeah. Past and current.
Yeah, so where we're currently at, there were some apartments that were there that were run down, had a lot of crime there, and that was the area we went into. We knew we were taking a chance when we did that. And then right next to us was a house, which was right next to City Hall, and they actually had their washer and dryer in the backyard. And so we were fortunate enough to be able to buy them out because we didn't want our patrons watching people doing their laundry.
Okay.
So our particular area of Winter Garden before was like that. Once we started building the brewery, I knew instantaneously it was going to be a hit, because we would go there on a Saturday or Sunday and would go to the work site, and it was literally like a parade of bikes, golf carts, cars, everybody going by and everybody staring at us trying to figure out when we were going to be done and when it was all going to happen.
So you built the Plant Street Market. It's right along the West Orange Trail, and it is packed day in and day out.
Yes.
Did you have any idea that it would be this successful?
To be honest with you, yes. And I just knew the demographic there. And I knew, I just saw the people coming by, and I saw how they looked at us, how they looked at the site when they went by, and I just knew it was going to blow up. Now, that being said, we had instant success. What I'm surprised in is that we continue to grow year after year, because every year I look at the amount of business we do, the amount of customers that come through here, and I say to myself, I don't know how we can handle more than this. And every year we do. Continues to grow.
It's amazing. And the model is so much more than just a brewery, because you go to a brewery and you have beers and you have quite a selection, and they're fantastic, but you also have the marketplace. So for somebody who maybe has been living under a rock and doesn't know how the market works, what does it look like when you first walk in there? Give us an idea if we're watching some video of it.
Yeah, so when you walk in, we designed it to be an open space, so you can see all the way down the hallway. And I think it looks good to the eye. It also allows you to see what all the vendors are, makes the space look bigger.
And it looks like it's been there for a long time.
Yeah, and we built it that way on purpose. Yeah, we had the bricks actually distressed a little bit along with the mortar, so that way the building actually looked like it was a lot older than what it was.
For the longest time, I thought it was an original building.
Yes.
So you fooled me.
It is news to us today that there was an apartment building there that you guys came in approximately 2014, tore that down, and built this from the ground up. And this whole food hall concept has really taken off across the country. And so how does that work? Because you don't necessarily operate all of those individual booths in there.
You're not a chef.
No.
In addition to everything
I don't
else.
want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the foresight enough. We actually, one of my partners originally, which now I'm the main founder. I've since bought them out. But one of the original partners was a chef. And he told us, you do not want to be in the food business. So that's part of the reason why we got the market concept. But what the market concept does is we rent those spaces out. I think we give them a really good deal because we're not trying to really maximize profits on their rents. We want to make sure they're successful and they're happy, because if they're happy, their customers are going to be happy. They're going to make us happy. So what they do is they pay us rent. We use that rent to really offset a lot of our expenses associated with the building. So that way, when it comes to the brewery side, everything's profit. In addition to that, it just gives people such a wide range of options when they come in. And it's very interesting to see, the demographic that comes in there and where they go and what they eat.
Yeah.
I like to pay attention to that.
Well, you've got something for everyone, So if your kids like this and you want this, everyone's happy at the end of the day. So that's great. And plus, there's a great outdoor space for families to hang out, dogs, of course, and we know that that's very important. But in addition to this just being a great concept, you also have really good beer. So how did that come about?
Yeah, so, I grew up in Ohio. That's where I was born and raised, and kind of in a German area of Ohio, and we like beer. We like beer and festivals, and so I just always liked beer. And I thought I knew a lot about beer. And then we started interviewing brewmasters once we opened the brewery, and I realized I know nothing about beer. It's a lot harder. It's a lot more scientific.
You're a chemist.
Yeah. I don't understand Plato real well. Not Plato, the measurement in chemistry.
Plato, you get.
Yeah, I get Plato. So, we went through a few different people as we were working up to where we've gotten to. But yeah, the brewmaster and the brewmaster staff that works underneath the brewmaster are so important to a brewery, and if you get somebody good, you really want to hang on to that person.
So, and how did you find your brewmaster, and what is the secret to success?
You put it
there?
on the
newspaper?
Well, initially we were introduced to someone.
Okay.
And that's how we found that brewmaster. But we opened in March of 2015. We got a random application, I think in May of 2015, and somebody who was an English major in college
and liked beer,
had a job at a brewery in North Carolina, wanted to move to Winter Garden because his wife, I think, was getting transferred, I think she had family here. So he moved. He got a job as one of the lower level guys at the time. And we sent him off to Brew School, and then eventually he worked his way up, and he's been our brewmaster for several years now and does a great job.
That's amazing. So Winter Garden obviously has boomed. Speaking of boom, Justin Wormuth, who does this Boomtown segment on News 6, spotlighted you guys because you're taking a whole new venture and you're taking it a little further west in Orange County. What's this? Where are you guys heading to now?
So it's Mineola. It's right next to Claremont. So a lot of people refer to it as Claremont, but yeah, it's Mineola. And it's an exciting project. It's going to go into what's called the Hills of Mineola, which there's a new turnpike exit on Hancock Road. Forget the exit number. But there's going to be a roughly 132-acre development there that's going to have mixed use. It's actually going to have a hospital. It's going to have a hotel. It's going to have a lot of retail, grocery, and last I heard, roughly roughly 1,000 apartments that are going to be on top of the retail.
And when they say Hills of Mineola, there are technically hills in Florida, and that's where they are, in Claremont and Mineola.
Yes, yeah, and that's kind of interesting when we went out there. When we were thinking of how we were going to do the brewery and how we were going to make the outside family friendly, one of the attractive things was a hill.
Right.
Yeah.
Because a hill's really simple, but if you look at how people use hills, they can sit on it, sit on the side of the hill and watch a concert. The kids will roll down them, and it's all natural. It's nothing we have to put in there.
And you are already operating some Wiener Dog Races.
Correct.
At your current location, so maybe, you can see some Wiener Dogs running down the hill.
Yeah, that would be interesting. We have some big plans for those Wiener Dog Races.
Good. Yeah. So when you first opened in Winter Garden, you said you had no questions about this site. You knew it would be a success, but you had some reservations initially about expanding into Mineola. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I just didn't know anything about it. I'd been to Claremont, And, when I thought Mineola, I thought middle of nowhere,
Right.
frankly. And so, I was presented with this particular development. About 6 months later, I was in the office talking to my CEO, and I said, let's take a drive to Mineola. And so we hopped in my car, and I couldn't believe it. It was 10 miles away from the Winter Garden location, and I got there in 11 minutes.
Wow.
And the reason is you're on the turnpike, and you can get a long distance very, very quickly. And then when I got there, I just couldn't believe, the topography, the number of households up there, the proximity to the villages, the fact that the turnpike is probably the main artery for the tourist corridor.
Exactly.
Signage on the main artery in the tourist corridor for people that are coming to Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld. Oh, by the way, our beers in all those locations, they're at the Publix, they're at the Targets, they're at the Walmarts. And so, perfect place to have advertising on the distribution side.
You've also made it a priority to kind of stay in Central Florida.
Yep.
Tell us about that, rather than expanding to like Miami or Tampa.
Yeah,
or
so
Why would you do that?
Yeah. the typical business model in breweries, at least from in my opinion, is that you open a brewery, you do well, and then right away you expand. You go out through the state. Once you do well in the state, you go out into other states, and then you're nationwide. That's changed, in my opinion. There's just so many local breweries now that people want local.
Right.
And if you're not local, there's only a few brands that can pull that off because they have the resources and the marketing and all that to be able to pull it off. I always said from the very beginning that I want to be the Abita of Central Florida. So I don't know if you've heard of Abita, but it's a beer in Louisiana. And if you go to New Orleans, I challenge you to go to any bar or restaurant or grocery store and not see Abita on tap. And so we're not there yet, but that's where we want to get to. And we're also advantaged by the fact that in Central Florida, we have a huge convention center. We have all these resorts. You can make a really good living just in Central Florida.
I mean, it's worldwide. If you think about the melting pot that happens here in Central Florida, there's somebody from every country, every state, it's all right here. But you're not closing the Plant Street market.
No, definitely not.
So how is this going to differ? Is it? I'm assuming it's going to be bigger.
It's going to be a lot bigger. Yeah, it's going to be 3 to 4 times bigger.
Holy moly.
Not just from the building point of view, but the footprint. So we're going to be on 3 acres. Currently, we're on 1 acre. We have about 12,000 square feet now. This is going to be 35 to 40,000 square feet.
When do you actually think this will be open for business?
Probably.
He says it with a sigh.
Yeah, around summer 2025.
Okay.
Is what we're
right around the corner.
We're hoping for. Yep.
You talked.
No, it's not. It is. In the world of business, it is right around the corner.
Right, and you talked about being in some of those, local places, theme parks, supermarkets. How are you able to get into those places? Because obviously you have, a very popular location, popular beer, but that's another step to actually get into those spaces.
Yeah. So, you go back to the question of, did you think the brewery would be successful?
Yeah.
And my answer was yes. I thought we were going to kill it in distribution. In distribution, I was 100% wrong on. Distribution has been significantly harder than what I thought.
You're competing against a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of people. So it's been really tough. But
what is that process though for people? Because I think that there are people out there who have dreams of doing just what you're doing. How do you even you call up Walmart? I mean, how does that go?
No. Yeah. So in Florida we have what's called the 3-tier system. So we're a manufacturer. And so then you have distributors. And so we work with a great company called FDC, or Florida Distributing Company. So we have to sell our beer through FDC. They're the ones that actually get it from our brewery to the retail customer, which is the third part of the 3-tier system. So everything goes through FDC. When you go into a restaurant, you look at the menu and you see beer on a menu.
Right.
I always thought that was natural. It's not. The hardest, it's amazing. It's so hard to get on a menu. We can have our beer for sale at a restaurant and it's not on the menu. So there's all these little tricks and things you have to figure out. FDC's done a great job of helping us with Universal and some of these bigger accounts. I think I'm allowed to say this. We're about to go into Costco.
Oh wow!
Which is it's gonna be a really really big deal. That should be in December.
Nationwide, or is that
no?
local?
That's just in Central Florida.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got to focus, and that's something that you certainly should be proud of too. Because it's one thing to say, I'm just going to try to go everywhere all at once, where you want to really stay tried and true to Central Florida.
The other advantage we have, and this gets back into why we're in Central Florida, is that we get into a lot of these accounts because they come to our brewery. And then they just say, I want to carry your beer.
Yeah.
We offer discounts to servers on Mondays, so they get 30% off if they come in.
I imagine a lot of Universal and Disney execs live right around Winter Garden,
exactly.
and love that spot. What have you learned over the past, what is it,
from that
8, 9, 10 years now? Yeah.
Oh boy, what have I learned? I mean, where do I start?
Are you still doing finance?
I still am. I've always said that, in business, it's one thing to start a business. Anybody can start a business, and a lot of people can be successful at starting a business. But how do you grow? How do you scale that business up? And that's where it gets really, complex. And, what I've learned is that you have to take some chances, but they have to be educated chances. So, for instance, what we saw when we opened is a lot of breweries just automatically assume that the customers were going to be there, and they built this huge brewery, and they didn't pay attention to what it cost and how you would actually have a profit in that brewery. So a lot of breweries have gone under because now they have more competition. You have White Claws, High Noons and things like that are your competition as well. And so they've gone under. So what we've done is we've taken a more conservative approach, and we're building the brewery now because we already have the demand. It's already there. So we're just filling demand that's already there. So it's not much of a risk for us.
Have you made any mistakes along the way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've definitely made mistakes. You want to hear one? I got to think about one.
Not to harp on the negative, but you got to learn from your mistakes too, which is
the biggest mistake. And I come from a finance background, and in my business, I usually go right to the top. So I want to go to the CEO. I want to go to the board chair. And when you're dealing with a theme park or somebody like that, and you go right to the top, you go around a lot of people, and they don't take it real well. So chain of command is a big deal in these accounts, and that's the biggest thing we learned. And now we're always about chain of command. We got to start with a certain people because we don't want to hurt their feelings or burn any bridges with them. That's the biggest thing I learned in distribution, for sure.
So, question for you. Your beers are delicious, by the way.
Thank you.
Which one's your favorite? Let's talk about the actual product.
High Stepper.
The High Stepper. Why? What is it about the High Stepper?
Just when you smell it, you just get this mango grapefruit that comes off of it, and it's an IPA, which is not for everyone.
I'm an IPA fan.
Yeah. So, but it's got this nice little mellow bite. So it's actually an approachable IPA. It's not a heavy IPA. We purposely make it a little on the softer side. If you're up in Maine or something like that, you want a heavy IPA because the weather's cold. Here you want something
that IPA hits you.
Yeah. You want something that you can drink in warm weather, and I just love that taste. Yeah.
How many beers do you offer on any given day?
Yeah, so right now if you went in there with the barrel room, you probably have 22 different beers would be my guess.
Are those all on tap, or are some on tap and some are canned?
All on tap.
They're all on tap.
Yeah, you can buy canned beer to go, and our seltzers are in cans. Those aren't on tap.
And how often do you bring in, seasonal varieties or different beers?
All the time. So, we have our core beers that we're always brewing. High Stepper is going to be a core, Florida Sunshine, Cloud Chaser, and things like that. Then we have our regular seasonal beers. So right now we're in the winter, so it's Black Frost, which you should be able to hopefully pick up in some Publix near you. ABC, Total Wine as well. So we have that beer right now, and then we have a bunch of one-offs that we allow the brew team to do because, if they just come in every day and brew the same beer, it's going to get old. So we want to let them use their creativity.
You mentioned you sent your current brewmaster to Brew School.
Yes.
What does that entail?
Yeah, it's actually, the big one's called Siebel.
Okay.
Don't ask me how to spell it. But it's in Chicago. And so, it's not like it's not like a 4-year college program or anything. You would go off there, I want to say it was maybe a 12-week program. And then if you have a lot of money, then you can elect to go to the Bavaria part where they send you overseas and you actually go to Bavaria. And we didn't pay for that.
It's okay. You're the Bavaria now, right? Which is cool.
And so take us through the brewing process. How do you get beer?
Yeah, so, the 4 main ingredients, you have water, malted barley, hops, and yeast. And so like a high stepper, for example, we just took a trip out to Yakima, Washington, which is where we get our hops from, Yakima Chief Hops. And so we went out there a couple of weeks ago, and so we actually did sensories on the different hops. So we select from different bundles, and you go through and you're trying to identify the characteristics in that hop that you think are going to make the best high stepper. And so then we select the hops that way. They then take those bundles and they pelletize them, long story, but they send them back to us. So that's how we get our hops. The brewmaster has a grain profile. The grain profile on a high stepper is going to be kind of light because they want the hops to dominate the taste. Mm-hmm. They condition the water. They have to use a certain type of yeast. It's a hard process, but really what you're doing is you're creating a starchy water that they call wort. You're spiking it with some hops to give it some flavor. You're putting it in a fermenter. I don't know if you wanted me to get this technical.
I love it.
But you throw the yeast on it. The yeast attacks the fermentable sugars. The byproduct of that is CO2, which comes out the bottom. And the yeast is converting that starch into alcohol.
Oh, that's so awesome.
When you came up with this plan for Crooked Can, you didn't know any of that.
I did not.
Why Crooked Can? What was the name of it?
That's a good question. So I'll be perfectly honest with you. We were in my buddy's living room, my partner's living room. We were drinking beers. We had a lot of beers that particular day, and that's how all our creative sessions worked. Which sometimes I have to pinch myself when that's how I do my work creative sessions. And there was a whiteboard up there on the wall, and it was crooked, and somebody just said Crooked Can. Well, we knew we wanted to be in cans,
right.
And the reason for cans is in Florida, you're at a beach, you're at a pool,
no glass.
infinitely recyclable. It's just a lot simpler. So we just said Crooked Can.
Otherwise, you'd be shattered glass.
Yes.
Doesn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah,
No.
glass is get crooked.
Shattered glass. That's actually pretty good.
Well, this has been so much fun. We are so excited about this new expansion that you guys have coming up.
Yep.
It's like a new baby.
It is like a new baby.
More than 9 months.
Yep.
Yes, and I know that news is already out there about these plans. What are you hearing on the street when people come in, and what are they telling you about this?
Well, I'm hearing a lot of excitement, which is the same thing I was hearing in Winter Garden. So I'm hearing the same thing, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
I've heard that there's an Advent Health going in there, and they just broke ground. Actually, I think this week they finally started clearing the lot. So I've heard stories where some of the employees at Advent Health are fighting over who's going to work at that hospital because they're going to be next to the Crooked Can.
Priorities.
I love it.
Yeah. So things like that. I think. The bike riders are going to be a big deal. There's some intense athletes out there because Sugarloaf's the big hill that really challenge you. So you see a lot of your ultra marathoners, your hardcore bike riders,
and your motorcycle riders too.
Yeah,
because you've got that whole Leesburg area.
Yeah, exactly. But the bike riders, they like to reward themselves after a hard workout. So I think we're going to get a big pop from that.
I mean, that's what she does, right? After a long bike ride on the Orange Trail.
Mostly it's because I'm biking with my kids and I'm just ready for a break. It hasn't been that intense. Where can people find you online to, stay up to date with all of these developments?
Yeah, so crookedcan.com, pretty simple. And as a matter of fact, I was just talking with my CEO last week, I believe. And so we're revamping the website, and we're going to have a specific section for Mineola that you can click on it and get updates. And so we'll kind of keep you up to date on our process.
And any other sites beyond Mineola right now?
There possibly could be, but it's too early to say anything. It could come pretty quick. But
is that an exclusive? I heard.
Yeah, it could be. You'll be the first to know.
Oh, can't wait.
Yes, yeah. And social media?
Yeah, social media. Our social media person's fantastic, but yeah,
You guys have a great presence on social.
yeah. Thank you. Facebook and Instagram, and I don't know. I don't even know what our handle.
I mean, you can't. Wiener Dog Races is social media gold. So
Yes.
What more do you need after that?
And that was for your big Oktoberfest that you guys just finished holding last month.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Andy Sheeter, thank you so much for joining us
very
on
nice
Florida
talking to you.
Foodie.
Next time we'll cheers too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
We'll go on location.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Florida Foodie. We'd also like to thank our guest, Andy Sheeter from Crooked Can Brewing Company. You can find his business online at crookedcan.com. You can also find it on Facebook and Instagram. Be sure to follow Lisa Bell online. Search Lisa Bell News on Facebook and Instagram. Candace Campos is also on social media. On Facebook, search Candace Campos News 6, and on Instagram, search Candace Campos WKMG. Also, a big thank you to our technical producers, Derek Mosier and Ryan Haley, and our director, Joe Grennan. I'm the show's producer, Thomas Mates. Please take the time to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify or wherever you stream podcasts. And you can find videos of all of our podcasts on clickorlando.com and on YouTube. Just search for Florida Foodie.